Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude, Beyond Mystic, and welcome to today's Beyond the Vault weekly updates. With me, of course, is the one and only Andy Sheckman. You can find him at milesfranklin.com and also here on his new podcast, Little by Little. You can find him at Miles Franklin here on YouTube. Andy, welcome back to the show. How are you, man?
JC, good to see you, brother. Good to be back. I'm good. Hope you are too.
I'm doing well, thank you. Apparently, you were unscathed by the last hurricane season. What happened to you guys?
Yeah, I knocked out the internet for half a day. That's about it. No rain, no thunder, no lightning, just some pretty heavy winds. But it was an interesting lesson that I learned in preparedness because, even though we weren't in the path and we knew that we weren't in the path, that we might get a little, ancillary damage from the edge of the storm as we're down in Delray Beach, which is the bottom east corner of the state. I couldn't get within a quarter mile of Costco 3 days before, literally. I mean, within a quarter mile on either direction. And when I went to the Publix grocery store, and there's one on every corner in Florida, just about, no water, no eggs, no milk. I mean, literally none. And coming from Minnesota, where the worst thing that ever happens is a blizzard, you never see anything like that ever. And it was an eye-opening experience where, being prepared, I think, is important on multiple levels, not just in this case, but, if you are reactionary, it's too late. And I think there's a good lesson to be learned about being, proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you. And I remember one of the biggest disasters here in Canada was during the ice storm. I think it was 2001. And we went here where I live 41 days without power. All the power lines were down. They were just like scrambling to put it back up, and the stores were empty and all that. And that kind of reminded me like, oh yeah, okay. You don't need to be a doomsday prepper to understand that there's shit happens all the time. And it's a good thing to be prepared. And especially if you're a father, a parent, and you have kids and all that too, you have to think a little bit further than perhaps yourself. So these types of events kind of put it all back in perspective. Well, we're happy you're okay, Andy.
Yeah, so are we. Thanks, appreciate it.
You're very welcome. So you're okay with the storms, but man, your politics and your neck of the woods is getting crazier by the day, Andy. I want to play this clip. So first of all, I don't know if you saw this. This was Ethel Kennedy's funeral the other day. We can't hear what Obama and Biden are saying in this particular clip, but somebody had fun and did some voiceovers for us. So I wanted to play that clip just kind of as an intro to have fun here today with the audience. So let me play this and we'll come back to the commentary. Oh, hold on. Shoot. Hold on a second here. Let me redo that because you're not going to get the sound. All right. Hold on. I just lost the screen there. This one here. Okay. I'll do this again. Okay. There you go.
Doing okay?
Nope. She's down, Joe. I think they found out that she's retarded, and now we're basically fucked. Trump is killing us at the polls, so yes, we're going to lose Joe.
Damn it. Wait. What if I come back to run again?
As candidate?
Yeah.
Well, let me put it this way, Joe. The only person in this world who is even more retarded than Kamala Harris is basically you. So no, Joe,
on, man.
You're
Just
not going
give
back
another
yet.
shot.
Let's let it all play out. Okay, we'll talk later, Joe.
Okay.
Women looking fine up in here.
Bill Clinton on this.
Oh, that's priceless, man. I mean, that is priceless.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Did you see Kamala's debate on Fox News?
I saw some of it. Yes,
the debate, but the interview.
It was unbelievable. I mean, if that didn't put a nail in the coffin for her, I don't know what will. But yeah, she's she's really a piece of work as it comes to just even being able to speak and to communicate. It just goes to show that, she would be nothing other than a figurehead. And I don't know. I think the real craziness happens, JC, after the election. I really do. I think that's when it begins. And you got a country that's kind of on the brink, it seems, of cultural and financial breakdown. And I don't know. I have a feeling that this election is kind of the tipping point. I think the volatility that we will be facing after the election will be like nothing we've ever seen before.
Well, you know what's crazy too in the mainstream news now? They're kind of priming us for this. The Democrats, or some Democrats at least, are openly saying that they won't commit to certifying the vote if Trump wins on election day. So we're heading up to some weird times. Before we get too far into that, so first of all, a big thank you to all of you guys joining us here today. We're triple casting on YouTube, Rumble, and X. If you like the videos, please hit the like and share this with your friends. Also, Andy, we're just a couple of days away. You and I have been talking about this for quite some time here, but this BRICS summit that is coming up in the last hours, in the last day or two here, people seem to be pre-positioning Russia here as the bad guy who's trying to push an end to dollar dominance, as if that hasn't already happened. But nonetheless, that seems to be the mainstream news right now. And I saw a weird language in Zero Hedge. This was yesterday. No, I think it was yesterday. The U.S. plans to let the BRICS fail in a geopolitical explosive environment. I don't know about you, but planning to let them fail doesn't seem like a very good strategy. Where do you think all this is going? What do you expect is around the corner here in this BRICS meeting coming up, Andy? And why is it so important for us here who are analyzing financial news?
I haven't read the article. You've intrigued me, but I don't know how they plan on letting them fail. I guess I'll have to see what the author, what his or her motivation is for saying that. But I think that what we will get out of the meeting is some form of clarity. I don't think we're going to get anything that is earth-shattering. I think they will say that we have made progress on our common settlement currency called the unit, that we do have intentions and we have agreed in principle of rolling it out. And there's rumors of it being rolled out sometime within the second half of 2025. I think we'll get clarity on how many countries have formally applied. Rumor is up to 59 have thrown their hat into the ring.
Yeah.
And, when we talk about these countries failing under geopolitical chaos, look, the way that it is set up so that there is no one central authority. And all of these countries are taking part in this voluntarily. And the presidency rotates every year with South Africa. Last year, it's Russia. This year, it's Brazil. Next year, and I think one of the ways that they have addressed this issue, where not every nation is exactly aligned ideologically, is to make sure that each nation trades their own central bank digital currency and that they're trading amongst one another using their own local currencies, but settling for energy or commodities or just to offset trade imbalances with this new unit token, which is pegged to gold. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the issue here, is that we don't have a common currency, but a common settlement currency, which really allows all of these countries to keep their own monetary house in order and to stand on their own 2 feet without being beholden to a common union and a common set of rules, if you will. So, I don't know how much I buy that article, albeit I haven't read it, but I plan on doing so now that you bring it up. But yeah, I would expect, look, the meeting that happened in Johannesburg, I think people's expectations were too high. And James Rickard, I met with him and had drinks with him in July last year before the August meeting. And he said things that I've been saying for a long time. The difference is I never put a timestamp on it. And he'll be right eventually. His timing wasn't. He said the Eurasian Economic Union and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization would join the BRICS. They will. They didn't, but they will. Even the president of Belarus, this European country that wants to join the BRICS, has called for a summit to do just that, to bring these two organizations into the BRICS fold. He said there would be a common settlement currency. He will be right. There hasn't been one announced, but look, the former president of Brazil and the head of the BRICS New Development Bank said we've agreed to it in principle. It will happen. And you can see that it will be pegged to gold. You can just see it by the BIS and the reclassification of it, all the gold accumulation, the repatriation, reading the white paper on the unit, reading the Bank of International Settlements report on Enbridge. Everything that I see, all of the crumbs are pointing to these things happening. But I think people need to manage their expectations. This is an inherent fault with people in the United States. It is that they expect instant gratification, and it's not fast enough even at that. Mm-hmm. And it's, I use this term little by little, the logarithmic decay. And the little by little part is something that most people can't deal with because it it takes longer. These are groups that think in terms of years and decades. It's been going on for 18 years already, albeit it is quickening, it is accelerating, and as is the group is accelerating in terms of its cohesion and in terms of the number of countries joining. But they won't pull the trigger until everything is in place. And it's not quite in place yet, but it is growing in legitimacy. So these things will be discussed. I think they will be clarified, but we won't get, I think, that big moment, that all at once moment, which will freak people out how fast that happens. But it's the little by little that makes people dismissive and say, it's a nothing burger, and it's this recency and normalcy bias that has too many people, even analysts, who are missing it. Yet you get people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Granted, she's not the most, she doesn't have the greatest in terms of, she's not an expert on it, and she's kind of laughed at a little bit, but she had the courage to say it, that the BRICS are going to take over the world reserve currency. Now, she was a little grandiose about it, but she's acknowledging it. Even Trump is acknowledging it, saying that we're going to lose the reserve currency.
Yeah.
The problem is that his strategy for addressing it, I think, is off a bit. But anyway you look at it, it's beginning to become more and more and more and more legitimate. I guess we'll see what happens, but I'm not looking for anything to be, ground shaking, at least in terms of what we learn right away.
So more clarity, perhaps, in terms of timing and how this is going to roll out.
Yeah,
so,
and also
like a roadmap here
in terms of the blueprint.
Yeah,
and I think that's really what I would expect to see.
Okay,
be shocked if it's much more.
Okay. Well, we'll do a show again next week. We'll see what that's all about. But the article was pointing at all of this geopolitical turmoil and some of the issues with the wars happening right now and the instability, suggesting that introducing something right now in that environment is not necessarily feasible to them. But as you said, this is in the making now for many, many years, and they've been going at it in a very slow and deliberate fashion also. So I think the people saying that are just hoping that that's what's going to happen, or they're trying to dissuade people from taking notice as to what's happening. That could be the strategy here, as they always do. Same with gold and silver. They're just pet rocks. You don't really have to look at it.
When all else fails, take them to war. And you do see that, you see the what's it called? The blockade exercises they're doing of Taiwan, where they don't need to invade Taiwan. If they just make a naval blockade, they'll basically starve to death in a matter of weeks.
Right.
And you see Russia and Iran. Look, these are countries that are involved in wars and maybe escalating wars, but of course, they're all tied together, not only with the BRICS, but the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is the largest regional military organization on the planet. So I think these countries are more aligned than people think. Mind you, they all have their own issues. But, the interesting thing is that you look at the United States and they have their fingers in all three of these pies. And you wonder, how much of this is orchestrated in order to do just this, to disrupt this movement away from the dollar, and to what lengths do they go? I'm not sure, but it's a trend that's very difficult to stop. When you look at all of the things that we've talked about over the years, and a growing fiscal irresponsibility and stupid monetary policy that's making the world reluctant to hold our treasuries and to continue to hold our dollars, which are being inflated away between 7 and 10% per year, every single year, year over year. So I think the inevitability of this grows with every day, but the outcome we may not learn here next week, but maybe a little bit of clarity anyway.
Okay, very good. One thing we're getting clarity on was a prediction you made, I don't know, almost a year ago on my show. You were talking about TD Bank and how they were in trouble here in Canada. Well, this is just in now. They were fined $3 billion here for apparently money laundering, or letting that happen, so to speak, if you read the article there. Now, the last time you and I talked about this, it was a little bit, maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, we were discussing how this was kind of a maneuver, a fight between the banks. They're weeding out the smaller banks here. They're buying, the bigger banks are buying out the smaller banks here. They're competing for deposits. Do you see anything else happening behind the scene here? Like, what's the real story right now with TD? Anything you want to add in terms of whether it was the money laundering thing that, presumably every bank is involved in. So why are they being picked on for that? Or was there maybe another component in terms of them not playing ball, for example, with the 10-year or with gold and silver manipulation? What's up with TD? What do you think is just happening now?
I don't know what's behind the scenes, and it is interesting that they've made a public deal about it. And I guess $3 billion is just the cost of doing business. But I don't know how much more of a big deal they've made, because if you look, J.P. Morgan is fined $960 million by the Justice Department for manipulating the metals market, yet is still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust. You look at HSBC Bank and their continual. They did the same thing, laundering drug money, and yet they were fined a few billion, and it's just business as usual. So, more so to that is that the rumor is that there are U.S. banks that are tied up in this scandal as well. And I've been saying for a long time, I think Bank of America will be the bank that will be sacrificed at the altar. You see $9 billion in stock sold by Warren Buffett in Bank of America, and Ted Butler, before he died, pointed to them as being the bank that holds a 1 billion ounce silver short position and about 40 million ounces of gold, which is as dumb as a mud wall. And when you talk about a 1 billion ounce short position, that means every dollar rise in silver is $1 billion loss on Bank of America's balance sheet. And 40 million ounces of gold, you got gold up today, $18-20. So that's $80 million loss right there. And you got silver up, well, it was up. It's about flat right now. But the point of it is that you have these banks which are facing existential threats for their stupidity in the way that they short the world's commodities. And, I don't know if that spills over. I don't know if there's a reason why they're calling out TD Bank, but I do think what you will see is a culling of the banks, and you will see a bank that fails and is bailed in, and that ignites the fuse. Right. Because most of the people in this country have no idea what a bank bail-in is. But worse than that, and I think actually becoming a more concerning issue, which has very, very little understanding, is money market gating. And if you look at the amount of money that's left the banks chasing yield, 7 or 8 trillion in money markets, it's the largest exposure to it ever. When Lehman Brothers failed in 2008, they controlled much of the money market industry, and everyone tried to yank their money out in the process, which is called breaking the buck. It turns the money markets upside down. You don't even get your principal back. And the government said, we can't do this. It destabilizes the economy so much because a lot of insurance companies and pension funds, they all invest in this. We can't allow this to happen. So in the Dodd-Frank Act, right alongside of bail-in legislation is money market gating. If the shit hits the fan and the economy starts to collapse, the markets start to collapse, and the money markets run into trouble, you can't get your money out. You're gated. Now, I'm on a show every Tuesday night with Dunnigan, or Wednesday night with Dunnigan Kaiser from Liberty and Finance, and he tells a story of in 2008 he was gated. And the bank that he was gated from collapsed, and he's never gotten his money back ever since 2008. And so this is a real deal. And with all of the money herded into the pen, if you will, of money markets, you got to wonder, why did they make these laws if they never intended for them to be exploited or used? And you want to create panic in the banking system. Let one of these big banks fail that have, several billion or 100 billion in money market exposure, and you're gated and you ride the whole damn thing down. It's one of these deals where I think if they wanted to issue a CBDC, they wanted to call the banks. By the way, Jerome would say, look, we told you this was going to happen. I told you there'd be bank consolidations. Yeah. It's the crumbs they leave, kind of like the crumb that Adam Lipinski, the head of the the Polish National Bank, they're the largest accumulator of gold this year in the world. They just surpassed the European Union in gold holdings. And his comment was something to the extent of, Poland owns gold because when someone shuts off the power to the digital financial system where all records are digitally held, and it destroys them. Now, we don't think this will happen, but, we own gold to be prepared for that eventuality. Now, it's something to that extent. I've talked about it before. Right. It's like some of these central bankers, I think they lay crumbs for us to see. That was one of them. And again, here's another one. So, yeah, I think the crumb was Jerome Powell saying, don't be surprised to see lots of consolidations. You want to consolidate them, let a bank be bailed in, let a money market be gated, and watch the chaos that ensues immediately.
Well, we're seeing more and more saber rattlings in the banking system. Let me bring this up. This was in Canada, but presumably you guys are facing the same thing in the States here with all these bank unrealized losses. But this is the Financial Post saying that Canada needs to prepare as risks of bank runs rises, warning this latest report here. This was published on October 12. So
there you go.
Whether it's the infighting between the banks, but the unrealized losses coming to fruition here, again, you're gated in, your bank is failing, and you can't get your money out. What do you see the situation is right now with the banks and the further, I guess, consolidation that you and I have been talking about now for almost 2 years in terms of these big banks swallowing up the smaller ones? Andy?
Yeah, I think that the banks are massively over leveraged and undercapitalized, and it's a problem waiting to happen. As you see the commercial real estate problem in the inner cities start to accelerate, all of these small businesses and the commercial real estate, it's 70% of both small business loans and commercial real estate loans are held by the regional banks. And all of the companies that sprung up around the office buildings and the sports arenas in the cities that are now being really affected by the mass migration problem, by the fact that people aren't working in the city anymore. They're working from home. So these buildings become empty. You see the biggest hotel in San Francisco. They just give the keys back to the bank and say it costs more to run this place than it does than it's worth. So here, take the keys and any equity that's with it. And all of the restaurants and the bars and the stores and the shops that spring up around it, even places like Whole Foods and Macy's and Walgreens, they're all going bye-bye. And as they leave, then the quality of life for the people who live there becomes less and less. And so they want to leave. And as more and more people leave, you get less in the way of tax revenue. And so then you see a denigration in the services, trash collection, responsiveness in police and fire and ambulance. So more people leave. And as a result, you get more businesses closed. It's a doom loop. And at some point, that doom loop has to really negatively impact some of these bank balance sheets, which I think starts off the cascade. Mm-hmm. And after all, if you intend to issue a central bank digital currency, it's much easier to do so, amidst a handful of large commercial banks than 5,000 banks in commercial, regional, and local size. And that, to me, has always been what they're trying to do. You put these legislations in place. You don't talk about it. The people have no idea, even the so-called well-read, sophisticated people, they have no idea that you are now a unsecured general creditor in a bank, i.e. the last to be paid. They don't understand that, we have $4 million in the money market because it's paying 4.5%, 5% with daily liquidity. I have an account at Truist Bank down here to pay my bills. And every time I put anything over a certain amount in the bank, I get a call from some peon who says, you've got all of this money in the bank. We should move you into a money market. I try to get them off the phone and they're, okay, I got it. They do it every single time. And they're trying to get people into money markets. Why? I mean, what does it mean? So if there is a problem, everyone who's got any amount of money in a bank has been called by their bank and said, put it in a money market. And a lot of them have. Why not put it in a money market if you're earning 3 times what they're going to pay you in the savings account with overnight liquidity until there's a problem? And I think that's the scary part is you have record participation in the money market. So one bank is all it takes. One bank to be really adversely affected. And here's another interesting thing. You want to talk about fine line between conspiracy and reality. That bank term funding program, the BTFP, that came in a year ago or so and rescued these banks that were distressed, right? The loans were for a year. They're winding it down. And the day after the election, it's poised to be at 0. Now, they could re-up it if their candidate of choice wins, or they could rug pull it if the other candidate wins. And what I'm saying is the last time we got to that level where that liquidity had been yanked from the system, if they didn't come in and issue that program, we would have seen that moment of bank failures and of bail-ins and of gating, but we didn't. On November 6th, that program is supposed to be at 0. Is there a coincidence there? You tell me. But I will tell you that if you wanted to blame everything on the new administration. Yeah, yank
That's how you would
all
do
of
it.
the
Just yank it out. Yeah.
and watch
Wow.
how fast it collapses.
Wow. Okay, that's crazy. Something else that's crazy, like just kind of like nibbling at your heels here. London mayor is slammed for allowing subway ad of Islamic preacher burning dollars. So we're kind of getting the message, but we're not getting the message. I thought this was kind of cool and funny at the same time. But we're seeing the destruction of the dollar being played out. But on mainstream news, they're telling us, "Oh, the dollar is going to be strong for the foreseeable future." I'm imitating Janet Yellen here when she was asked about the BRICS nations introducing their payment settlement system. So we're getting it from both sides. We're getting the weird subway ads, but we're getting from officialdom, don't worry, everything's fine. And as you say, little by little, they're putting in all of this legislation for what purpose, at what end, and when do they initiate them. So
You know,
very
if you were
interesting
to do a
times.
simple Google search for the gold yuan, you'll see a billboard that'll pop up. It was a year or so ago, and I don't know if it's still right there, but these little subliminal messages, they're now putting it on billboards in China, and it's the digital yuan and it's gold. And, you know, you have these messages that are subliminally being put out there. I mean, are these the crumbs? And I believe that they do give us crumbs. And this is what I have had either stupidity in acknowledging and vocalizing, or luck in putting them together. And these crumbs have come together in a lot of ways. And so part of me feels that there it is. That's it. Those are billboards all throughout China. So I mean, is that something that is that a coincidence? You know, that their affinity to gold, and they understand what gold represents. They're the largest producer in the world, the largest accumulator. They're buying oil all around the world using their yuan, which is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. Gold is center stage in these nations, and these are the little crumbs that we continue to see. And so I do think that, you know, people will say, yeah, I kind of knew about that. Why didn't I do it? And that's their way, in my mind, of having somewhat of a clean conscience. Yeah, we tried to let people know we couldn't. You know, you look at the FDIC, they got caught. There was a video that leaked that basically said, if we really told the people what's going on with the banks, they'd freak the hell out, and we can't let that happen. So, you know,
didn't he say we'd all be hanging by light poles or something by the end of the week or
right.
something?
Well, and
like
that's
that?
the point.
Yeah.
It's like they know, but there's always a few crumbs that are left, and either you acknowledge it and follow it and trust your gut, or you get run over by it if indeed it is true. And that's why, you know, I go back to the analogy of the grocery stores. You know, if you wait until it's too late, you go and the shelves are empty, and that's how fast it happens. So these are interesting times for sure, and they are quickening.
Yes, it's quickening. And maybe a positive note to all of that, I just saw this new survey. Great news. Americans' trust in mass media hits all-time low. That's interesting to me, because more and more it appears that we're entering this new period of time that Cliff High had predicted, where people were dropping off of the mainstream news kind of timeline into this disintermediate alternative newscape. And this is why more and more people are coming here to the show. But what was even more interesting than that was the interview that Trump just had with Bloomberg. And so that, I don't know if you saw the interview, but the exchange there was absolutely crazy. Trump's like, you guys have had it wrong all these years, and he's just going after them. And the crowd is literally applauding, and the fact that these guys are completely wrong. They were talking about the terrorists here, and they were trying to preposition Trump on some of the things he had said against China and the auto.
I think the worst one was Vance on ABC News the other night, and this idiot, and you know, and even if
the one where he says we kind of have 4 more years of this, that one.
Well, no, he said, you know, even if you're way left, you have to understand how stupid what this woman said was, and. You know, they're talking about the apartment buildings that have been taken over by Venezuelan drug gangs. Yeah, and she says, you know, look, it's only 3 apartment or 4 apartment buildings. And, you know, it's all, and he says, do you actually hear how stupid you sound right now? Yeah. You have 4 apartment buildings being taken over in the United States, and it's just 4. And so, you know, I think people understand that what is coming out of the news is anything but news, and there is no journalistic integrity. You, my friend, are far more of a journalist and a source for real news than anyone that would consider themselves, a network mainstream news source. And that's the sadness of it, that, you can't believe what, and that's why so many people are going to get run over by this, because they consider themselves well-informed and well-read. But if that's all you did was follow the mainstream narrative, watching Morning Joe in the morning and CNBC during the day and MSNBC at night, you're dead. And you would have no idea, and you would hate the hell out of Trump, and you would think he's going to, destroy democracy, and there'll never be another election again, and blah, blah, blah. It's just really sad, the divisiveness and the lack of due diligence, or it's really not even that. It's just how stupid people are. It's stupidity that they accept this kind of narrative, and are okay with it. It's like the culture has just been whitewashed right out from underneath us.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yet we have running mates. When you said Vance, I thought of Walz, but this is the quote from Walz. I don't know if you hear it, but let's play it for the audience members and come back to it. He's basically throwing Harris and Biden under the bus without even realizing. This is how stupid
He's
this
an
guy
idiot.
is. Listen.
Look, you all know it. We can't have 4 more years of this. We won't have 4 more years of it.
Doesn't he realize that his running mate was part of that last 4 years? I was just like, wow, these guys are crazy. Anyways,
and she's trying to distance herself from it. But remember, before, she was the last one in the room on all of these very important decisions. And, and she was the border czar. So, I mean, all of these, what can't we have 4 more years of, Tim? He's the reason I left Minnesota. I mean, literally, he led the nation's charge in defunding the police. He let the city of Minneapolis burn and be eviscerated for 3 days before calling in the National Guard. And of course, what goes on in the high school bathrooms with tampon dispensers. That's true. Everything that this guy has done in the state of Minnesota, including squander a $16 billion budget surplus, is reprehensible. And now you're getting all sorts of other things that are coming out about, underage kids and all of this stuff. And it's just crazy that there isn't, I mean, if this were Trump, you get Kamala who goes and says the other day, when I'm elected, I'm going to give $20,000 to, I don't know how many millions of African-American black men to start a business, and which is illegal. We can't do that. But what if Trump said, "I'm going to give $20,000 to 2 million white men"? The outrage that would happen, and it's just pandering, and you can't do that. And the government doesn't have the money to give. That means they take it from the private sector. They take it in the form of taxes and give it to people who, just like the PPP loans. Yeah, I'm going to start a business. Oh, it didn't work. Thanks for the 20 grand. The loan is you don't have to pay it back. It's not it's a forgivable loan. So it's like the depths of idiocy that we've sunk to, and the fact that these kind of things aren't called out is just, it's beyond me, man. It really is.
You want to laugh a little bit? Let's listen to this quote. Here, he's asking, hold on, let's go back to this one. He's talking about the polls and the fact that a lot of people are supporting Trump. There was over 100,000 people at his rally in California. And he's asking Harris, why is that? What do you think's happening with these people who are supporting Trump? Like, are they stupid? What do you think is going on? Let's see what her answer is. We'll play the section.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people. What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
So are they?
So it's like, what a setup. I mean, oh my God, Andy, things are getting crazier by the day.
Yeah, it is, and it's concerning, man. It truly is. It's very concerning to see what the world looks like come the day after the election. Well, the way votes are tabulated these days, maybe we should say the week after the election.
What do you make of this one? As people are no longer following mainstream news, what do you think this interview is going to do here between Joe Rogan and Trump?
I'm glad that Rogan has done it, because Rogan has not been a big Trump supporter. And he has a far bigger reach than the mainstream media does now. I'm glad he's doing it. My friend Chris Irons from Quote the Raven wrote a very interesting report basically saying, come on, Joe, have him on, do this. It's the right thing to do. I'm glad he's doing it. By the way, I think people should subscribe to Quote the Raven. It's an amazing, he's a really, really good guy and a smart guy. His writing is as good as any I've ever read. But anyways, yeah, I think it's amazing. I can't wait to watch it. And I'm glad
as soon as this news came out that they were going to do the interview, Kamal's like, okay, I want to be on Joe Rogan too. I'm like, oh man, that's going to be another.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I really would love to see that because you know, he's no nonsense in the respect that if they give him a laundry list of things that are do not ask, I think he'd be the first to come out and say, this is what they said to me and told me I couldn't ask these questions.
Yeah. Let's get into some precious metals talk here. In the last interview you and I did maybe a month ago, I had put out this article of billionaire Ray Dalio saying, if you don't own gold, you know neither history nor economics. Frank Juster reposted that earlier today, saying you don't need to be Nostradamus here to see what's going on and what's just about to come around the corner. So where do you think gold is going right now? As you just said, we're sitting at this all-time high. We're a couple of days away from perhaps the BRICS giving clarity on this new payment system, the unit, which is backed 40% by gold. Are you seeing more upwards pressure on gold right now? What's the sentiment right now? And what do the orders feel like right now to you, Andy?
We're at $2,700 right now, real damn close to it. And there is an awakening. We've seen a lot of very, very large orders by people whom we've never talked to before that are referred to us, that are concerned. These are people who have relied upon money managers forever. And most money managers really don't push towards owning gold because they used to be called stockbrokers. And so they would make a percentage of every single trade. But now they're money managers. And the difference, unless you're a CFA, which is a real deal, you take 2 or 3 tests over the course of 2 years, it's real. But to be a money manager is different. You pass the Series 7 and then take a 100-question test on ethics, which I passed at one point, didn't even study for it. It's 100 ways to screw someone or not. Use common sense, you'll pass it. But now you're a money manager. Your trades are free, but anything underneath that umbrella, we make a percentage of. So when Joe or Jane, six-pack says, I want to buy 10 million in gold, well, at 1%, you're taking 100 grand off that guy's plate every single year. And he's going to find every single reason to tell you you're an idiot. And so now you're getting people who are just concerned. They see what's happening and they're like, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. We aren't seeing the volume that we saw during Silver Squeeze and where everyone was just throwing anything at the market, trying to overrun the silver price. This is now more an issue, I think, of people who truly are concerned about, older folk leaving a legacy, getting out of harm's way, realizing that, profit's not a 4-letter word, that they've run their equity portfolio way up. And they're concerned if Kamala wins, is she going to have success in doubling the capital gains rate or imposing a 25% unrealized gain tax or doubling the corporate rate? So much so that, Paulson, what's his first name?
Richard?
I forgot his first name. What's that? No, it's it doesn't matter. His last name is Paulson. He's a big hedge fund investor. He said, I'll yank $9 billion out of the market the day she wins and go all into gold and cash because of this. And it's real.
John Paulson.
John Paulson. Yeah. And he said, I'll yank it right out of the market. And so you see, the biggest hedge fund guy on the planet say, if you don't own gold, you don't know history or economics or whatever. He said, these are the wealthiest people in the world and they understand it. And I think there is something to be said for people who have accumulated great amounts of wealth and are a little bit older. And their biggest concern at this point is passing it on to their family. And I think they're concerned about traditional assets and they're putting a little bit more time. And maybe they stumble across a video you and I do, or maybe they're just finally waking up to the fact that, the road to retirement isn't always only paved with traditional assets. You look at, for example, the Fed, they lower rates and what happens? The bond market sells off on the 10 and the 30 because the world knows that means we've chosen inflation. as our path. We're 60% away from our target. We got it. We're good. No, we didn't win anything. We're waving the white flag to inflation and giving into it. And so I think there is a certain amount of an awakening, an understanding that it's time to think unconventionally in these very, very unconventional times. I heard Jim Willey say, the first election that he remembered was John F. Kennedy, and he was 8 years old. And he said, he's been through a couple more elections than I have. He said, this is the scariest election of my lifetime. And it is scary. And it's not even as scary as much as the outcome is as to what the results after the outcome truly become. What does it mean? And then you got idiots like Jamie Raskin in California saying, yeah, I won't ratify it. I mean, really? And that maybe is our like upsetting even people who are staunch Democrats, thinking, at some point this just becomes embarrassing, because the electoral process, the immigration process, judicial system, these are the hallmarks of the United States. This is why people came here, to find a better life, only to now find it's an illusion, and it's being distorted and perverted, and it's icky. So maybe there are people waking up. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that there are people waking up, and it's at a very interesting time, because not only do you have the BRICS meeting and the election, but this is the time of year when you see products disappear, right? So the maple leaf, gold maple leaf, they're gone. Even the backdates, they're gone. And I won't get any until the 2025s come out. The 1/10 ounce gold eagle, they're gone. I won't get any until the 2025s come out. What's really interesting is that silver bars are becoming really hard to get. 100-ounce kilo, a lot of them come from Switzerland, and they're really hard to get, and the shipping rates have gone parabolic. And so they're very expensive. And it's unusual, because that stuff's usually very easy to get. And I've been on your show for 6 months saying
I've been seeing here in Canada too, a lot of places where their silver bars have just as high premium as the silver maples. Is that
really unusual?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. So that's the point. And I've been on your show for 6 months saying premiums are low and availability is great, but it changes quickly. And this is how fast it changes. And if you see some event that wakes people up, which I think they want to happen, and I think it will be in the banks, like that, it's gone. And this is the Publix grocery store analogy, or getting a quarter mile from Costco and a line on both sides that would take you 3 hours just to get into the parking lot.
Right.
That's the same analogy.
Speaking of things that happen, Speaking of things that happen very rapidly, James Turk here on this post on October 17, minor resistance at $32 here for silver. It's relentlessly chewing through it though. And once 32 is hurdled, then 50 in days/weeks away, not months, he says. Do you agree with that statement? How close are we to bridging that gap here to get to that all-time high in silver, Andy?
I mean, I think it's 32.50 myself. It's close. It's got to close above there. But these numbers, 32-ish.
Close above like there on a daily or on the weekly?
On a daily. It has to close above there on a daily, and that would break through resistance. But this is like gold at 2000. It kept hitting it, and cross it, get smacked back down. Hit it, cross it, smack back down until finally it just kept going and didn't look back. And we see that a lot. Look, you have... Let me give you some numbers here that are kind of striking, that I think people should understand when we're talking about silver and what it really means in terms of its potential. I think it's ridiculously strong. But right now we have. First of all, we have silver hitting all-time highs in your currency, just about, almost there in the Canadian dollar. It's really close to being all-time highs in the euro. It is at all-time highs in the Indian rupee and the Australian dollar and the rand. We have a 265 million ounce deficit this year between supply and demand, which is structural. And it's been 1.1 billion ounce deficit over the last 6 years. But here's the interesting thing. The M2 money supply since 1980 is up 14 times. So the money supply has been increased by 14-fold since 1980, and silver is selling at a 40% discount to its 1980 high. And when you have the London Metals Exchange trading upwards ends of 2.9 billion ounces of silver per day, every day, which is 3.5 times global annual mine supply, of which there is between a 4 and 6 billion ounce short position on paper. Every $1 increase in the price of silver puts between a 4 and 6 billion dollar hit on these commercial banks that are shorting the market, as stupid as a mud wall. And there's only 300 million ounces backing those contracts that are 4 to 6 billion, where everyone thinks if they want, who holds those contracts, they can stand for delivery. This is literally one of these massive threats, existential threats to the banking industry. And so, yeah, I think it will be one of these little by little, then bang, all at once, it goes to the moon. And then you got, as we've talked about before, China flying all around the world buying unrefined silver and doré and concentrate, paying double what the West will. You have India buying 800 million ounces over the last 3 years. And now Russia saying, oh, by the way, we're going to officially start accumulating silver. It's the first government I've ever heard say that, along with platinum and palladium. And the numbers they're talking about are very significant. So, yeah, I think that, when you talk about how significant, they said they're going to spend 8.2 billion rubles a day for the next month on gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. And I mean, that's a lot of money, right? And we're getting to that point where it's going to be really difficult for them to hold the price down with all of this international buying and standing for delivery. So unfortunately, you have to have strong fingertips. You got to hang on. You got to trust your gut. You got to see the big picture. But it's never been this, I think, aggressive in terms of, precipitating some sort of an outcome.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, Andy. Guys, if you're on the Canadian side of the audience here and you're looking for silver, mfbullion.ca here has these brand new 2-ounce silver Canada Goose coins. They're really, really cool coins there in the collection. These are the 2025s, and they're available to you guys here at $409 over spot Canadian. Really good price there for that as well. And if you guys are on the American side, of course, please do visit beyondmystic.net/silver. Andy, still available here on the junk silver. And what's the price this week here?
We still do have the junk silver, although that is not, and I got to get you these specials before we talk. We still do have it. And for your listeners, we will honor that price. And even on larger orders can probably even do a little bit better. I find it to be the best value in silver, period. Not even close. Not even close. Because during the pandemic, there was nothing more expensive per ounce than junk silver except Silver Eagles. Nothing. Right. And as the price came down over the last 6 months, as everyone had been jumping into Nvidia and Bitcoin and Apple, and it fell below the price of all of the sovereign coins that it was higher than for 3 years. And again, I think it is unquestionably, it's even cheaper than the 100-ounce bars right now. I think it is not even close. It's the best value I've ever seen in my career for silver. It's what I would be buying personally.
Very good. Andy, before we go, like when Lisa was in the chat, she was saying, hey, there's a lot of sand communications here from Dan Scavino and many others. I saw somebody else posting the other day, the Enter the Sandman song from Metallica, suggesting we could be there. The question is it time for Operation Sandman, Andy?
Well, Mike Adams, who originally taught me about Operation Sandman, and Lisa is the greatest. Hi, Lisa. He would tell you perhaps that it has already started. Operation Sandman, or the Night of the Switch, would be 100+ countries who have agreed all at once to dump dollars in treasuries. And I don't know if we're at the doorstep of it. Who knows? I mean, does it have to do with the election or the BRICS meeting? Perhaps, possibly. Yeah. But, that's why a lot of the reason I say this stuff will happen on a Monday morning, Sunday night. It'll happen across the globe while we're all sleeping. You'll wake up and there'll be no chance to go to Costco or go to the grocery store. And I say that metaphorically. I'm just simply saying that when you continue to see this rhetoric increasing and accelerating, at some point, you have to take a step back and acknowledge its reality. And it's kind of like, home insurance. You don't come home after paying your homeowner's insurance and say, shit, my house didn't burn down. I just paid my premium. It's one of these deals where you have to acknowledge, if you acknowledge that it is a possibility, then you need to prepare for it. So Operation Sandman would be a religious experience in this country. It would immediately create hyperinflation as everyone dumps dollars. you're talking over 100 nations. Now, this is kind of the path I've talked about for a long time in relation to no longer taking the dollar as a petrodollar. And if the synthetic demand that has been created for everyone having to stockpile it for 50 years, if all of a sudden all of these nation states start to dump it simultaneously in concert, that tsunami of inflation hits our shores, creates hyperinflation. The byproduct of hyperinflation is not Powell-induced higher interest rates, it's market-induced higher interest rates that have to compensate for the 20 or 30% spike in inflation. And you put real double-digit inflation, 20+% with 20% interest rates. Well, your currency dies at 5% interest rates and 20% inflation, you're dead. So you put interest rates up that high to compensate. If that ever did happen, everything inversely correlated to it dies. Not only is the dollar dead because everyone's dumping it, but stocks, bonds, real estate, the banks, and the insurance companies are all wickedly inversely correlated to a massive spike in interest rates. This has been my mantra forever because it's easier to say those sons of bitches did it to us instead of Janet Yellen and Powell and Bernanke and Greenspan being hung in the gallows in the town square for doing this to us. So finding a villain, and could it happen? Sure. Does it make sense? Absolutely. But who knows when? Just know that if you're not prepared, that's when you see the banks collapse, the insurance companies collapse, the stock exchange go limit down and shut down. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, people think that the concept is legit. Well, think about the ramifications, which are far more frightening than the dumping of dollars. It's what happens here as a result of it.
Right. People say it's better to be early at the party than one day too late. So, Speaking of parties and inflation, Andy, let me end on this one here too. I thought that was funny this morning. Tequila is inflation proof. U.S. drinking rates hit record high since the 1970s inflation storm as tequila demands soars. Maybe you and I should start investing in tequila.
I love myself a good Don Julio 1942. There's nothing quite like it. We'll have to do that together at your show in
Ottawa, for the conference.
And I'm buying, so let the tequila fountain go.
Okay, sounds good. And guys, if you want to join us for that, go to beyondmystic.net/conference. There you'll see the details. The keynote speakers here for this event. Of course, Andy is one of them. And the VIP passes are sold out. Mystic passes are sold out. We still have the general admission passes available for you guys. And also, if you can't join us here in Ottawa in person, you can check out the online streaming pass. They're still available, but we will need to cut this at some point here because of the bandwidth issues at the venue for that event. So looking forward to seeing you guys in Ottawa and having a nice tequila there.
Cannot wait. I'm looking forward to that too. I'm going to hold you to that as well. So
for sure.
We were actually, I do this weekly live stream on top of doing some interviews. I just did one today with Johnny Bravo, and who's a really cool guy. But I was talking about with Kevin, who does live streams with me. I said we should actually promote every question that gets asked. We alternate taking a shot at tequila and do an hour-long live stream and see how we hold it together. I think we're going to do something like that in the next week or two. So,
dude, that'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me know. Get a watch.
I will. We'll see if we make a fool of ourselves or not. But anyway, it's always good to see you, JC. You're the best, brother, and I'll look forward to picking up with you where we left off next week. And until then, hope you have a great weekend, and everyone else out there, God bless.
Thank you so much, Andy. And folks, please join us at 2 p.m. here for the Beyond Ravens Quick Draw Thursdays. We've moved the show now from Tuesday to Thursday at 4 p.m. Jenny and I also have a special guest here on the Beyond the News Breaking News edition. And then this October surprise, October 17th episode here tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern. So big production day here. Guys, thank you so much for watching us here today, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you, Andy. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.